Go on to YouTube. I'll come over here, hit this button, hit that button. All right, everybody, welcome to Almost in Agreement. I have Miss Virginia Babb in the room with me. We're going to talk a little school board budget. We're going to talk a little masking and now, because that's a new thing that kind of popped up all of a sudden, and we get to talk about it because we haven't talked about masks for, 16 months or so now. But we'll add that to the list of things to do. As well as, a big one for me is budgets. I talk about that a lot, and we're going to start exploring this budget a little bit, and we'll see what else comes up in the process. I'm happy and excited to announce that Fanatic Brewing is a new sponsor of the show. It's fanaticbrewing.com. They want me to talk about their really, really cool fan base, which is their version of a tap room. They're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday is open mic night for comedy. Friday, Saturday, they have a $5 Black Angus burger or $5 Black Bean burger for the vegetarians out there, as well as a couple of beer specials that go on Friday and Saturday night as well. Check them out at fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. That way they know that we send them to them. So again, if you haven't had Fanatic already, they're in all the grocery stores too. It's great beer. Go back a couple episodes. I had Marty, the owner and brewmaster, there on. He's a really, really great, fun guy to talk to. So fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. Check them out, and we're going to start with a show. Slow fade into the wrong thing. Doesn't matter. I'm still working on this part. But Virginia, hi. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. We're going to need to pull the mic a little bit closer to your face. I'm not getting enough of you. How are you today?
I'm good. How's that?
All right. That's much better.
Okay.
I'm really loud, and so it ends up being I have to bring you to my level because I'm so loud. So there you are on the camera. Let's do it this way. All right. So in the background is the budget as we see it so far. I'm going to kind of leave it in this camera set so we can talk more about it specifically.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know where to start. I actually text
Ron,
and was like, "Hey, man, I'm looking at this budget, and I don't know what I'm looking at." Mainly being,
it's a lot.
There's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of parts and pieces.
It's a lot of money.
And I guess for me, the one that I guess I'd need to get Ron on for more specifically is that, okay, I see this total number. If I can ever zoom all the way to the top of this 5,000 page,
542 million.
Yeah. How many districts? Whatever. The total budget this year. 542 million.
Yes.
That's a projected increase of 34.2 over last year. So where I want to start with that is last year's budget was already in the books, or last year's budget was made knowing pandemic adjustments.
Wow. Okay. I'll have to really think back, and once again, we had preliminary talks, and this is how this always goes, is they have board members in for preliminary talks. Each one of us individually kind of talk to us about what they're thinking. And last year we had those, and actually our budget looked great last year. And we were all excited about things we were going to get to do. And then, March happened and the world ended about mid-March. And as you can see, this is typically the time of year where we're starting to actually finalize budgets and stuff like that. So there was a lot for everybody, the state, the county, the schools. We all had to go back, and nobody knew what the world was going to look like. And we did some big drastic cuts. When I say we, it's really our financial people that do it, and then they bring their suggestions to us. So last year's budget, when we were preliminary talking about it, economy was doing well. We thought things were good. And then the budget that got passed actually was drastically different because we didn't think there was going to be any sales tax. We didn't know people were going to leave their houses. So it was very bare bones. And you'll even see in the budget as we maybe go through it some, there were some things like allocations to schools that help with things like reams of papers at the school, help art teachers with their supplies, got cut 50%. It was like anything that we thought we could cut last year, we cut. So what got passed was basically a revised budget.
Okay. But to finish the first question, that 34.2 mil up from the revised one last year. And so how much did we guess that we, that's me, guys. I should know better. It's my show. But do you recall off the top of your head what the original budget for last year was supposed to be before it got slashed?
I don't. My guess is it was probably about half this because I think we're going, and once again, this is where I'm not great on numbers.
So if we would have had the original budget from last year, we would be 17 mil up this year.
Yeah, I think 17 mil is about a normal jump. So
best of our recollections, 2021's original budget was going to be in the 525 range, somewhere in there.
That would
but
be
we
my
cut
guess.
it back to a 510-ish.
Yeah.
And so okay, so this 34 million is expected because we didn't do the growth last year that we would normally have done because of the weirdness that was last year.
As nobody, I mean, if anybody's paid attention, I mean, sales revenue has actually gone out of the ballpark. I mean, it's better than it ever has been.
Right, because we get to spend our own money back when we get our taxes.
We get our money back. Well, also, we've all gotten, not all, but a lot of people have gotten stimulus checks. They've been home with nothing to do but order off Amazon to do home improvement projects, things like that. So
go buy a piece of wood right now and see how much a 2x4 costs.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
If you can afford to do a renovation right now. But what was I saying?
Just for fairness, I was doing it before it was popular. I did it because I thought I was doing my neighbor a solid because my neighbor is a contractor. And I was like, hey, man, I don't know if you're losing work right now because things are busy, but I was planning on doing a new deck. You want to do it for me? And like we got in right in time after we actually ordered all our stuff. And then by the time it got here, it would have been like 25% more in materials from the time I ordered it to the time I received it because of the madness. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted with that one.
Yeah.
Because I'm cool like that.
But so anyway, so not only is you have the natural growth, but then we just had so much better than in the past sales revenue. So going into this year, we've got a really good budget on top of stimulus money that has come in too. We get in the ESSER funds.
Right. So that's one I wanted to go, and I don't know if this is the natural time to get there. Is this budget including stuff that the federal government's put out, or are we saving that? Because just like the county, we're waiting to figure out what we're allowed to do with it.
Well, okay, ESSER 1.0 has already been spent. I'm pretty sure about that. ESSER 2.0, we have the plan for. And it does not get put in this operating budget. So any of the ESSER money is not part of what you're looking at.
Okay.
Because it's not general purpose operating expenses. They're one-time expenses. But what happens is we are able to take some of that money and offset some things.
Right.
So it does help our budget, even though it doesn't show up in our budget, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. The concern would be that since we have it this year in the roundabout way, then all of a sudden next year we're going to be like, well, we need to continue that thing even though we didn't, but we did.
Yeah, you don't want to hire 10 new teachers. And there have been some thought on why don't we just raise custodial staff through the roof? Well, that's great. We can pay them 1 year really well, and then hey, everybody that we hired this we'd have to bring back. So
is the staff is the I mean, I know there's a teachers. Do we have a teachers union? We have a teachers union.
We do have a teachers union.
Do we have? Does any other school staff have a teachers? Have a union? Do we have a custodial or janitorial?
I do not believe there is a union for.
Then just do it and fire them next year.
Huh?
Just do it and fire them next year.
Well, we could do that. It's just not the best practices.
I mean, if you need it, you need it, and if you can afford it, I don't know. I'm not the nicest business person, I guess.
If you look at our budget, one of the big things is across the board, everybody getting a 4% raise. That would include custodians, secretaries, things like that. But there's also, depending on...
And important to clarify, an actual 4% raise as opposed to when the governor says a 4% raise and it's actually a 2 3/4% raise.
Yes, truly
allocated.
Our staff, we will take what the governor has given us for a raise, and we will take things, and truly everyone will get a 4% raise. Then there are also some employees that will get step raises. So some employees actually will go up more than 4% because if you're a teacher, there are step increases built in across the lifetime of your career. But they get halted at a certain time in their career also.
All right, so that brings up another question for me because we've talked about it a bunch of times, and when I had Miss Owen and Ron McPherson on last time, they told me a number, and I think I'm misrepresenting it. And for my own sanity, do we have a fixed starting salary for a new teacher?
We need our HR people here for that. I do not know. I don't know.
Okay, because I know when I was talking about it with Ron, the BEP formula gives us like 48 something per teacher.
Yeah.
And I've started spouting that off as that's a starting salary for a teacher, and then in hindsight, I'm thinking, well, maybe they're giving us 48 per teacher because that is 37 for the teacher and then 11 for supplies and other stuff or whatever. And that's just the way the formula works. Because sadly, I'm one of the more knowledgeable people about how BEP works, as you can tell, because it's stupid. Anyway, I'm not going to say stupid, but it's
I do know this much.
Overly
there
complicated.
Are some different salaries because depending on kind of certifications, degrees, that sort of thing.
New teacher versus one moving in from another state or something,
but even new teachers sometimes have different degree levels and stuff like that. So there would not necessarily be your first year teaching with Knox County Schools, everybody's getting the same thing. So there is some variation.
Okay.
And I do not even know the
All right,
starting
I'll
salary.
ask Ron the next time I
that's
talk
a
to
Ron
him. I actually was thinking about calling him here in a second and just throwing him in on the show just to get more things going on at once.
Right.
But I interrupted. You were speaking of step increases, and those come to it. There's a sunset. Eventually, you can only get so many step increases before your salary kind of levels
so we
out
get
as a
actually
teacher.
some of our more experienced people you would really treasure, and they literally tap out at the step increase, don't get higher unless we actually do an across the board increase, which is what this 4% is this year. Also, in our budget, depending on if revenue from the state comes in better than we're expecting, and I actually called Ron right before I came because I wanted to have some information. We're waiting on April.
Did you tell him you were coming for me?
I did tell him I was
That's
coming for
awesome.
you. Yes, he goes, "Are you going to talk to Seth?" I said, "Yes, I am."
Nice.
Seth, you're getting to be famous among all of us.
I'm trying. Well, I'm famous enough to get a sponsor, fanaticbrewing.com/agreement. Anyway, I mean,
Maybe you need to get like a textbook sponsor.
I'm trying. Well, I'll save that for another episode. That one's different.
But so I called Ron to find out if we had gotten our April projections in yet. He said usually we should have gotten them by now, so any day they're coming in, but we do not, as of noon today, we did not have the April projections, which will help us a lot towards this next year's budget. And one of the things is, depending on if the number is better than projected, we actually would like to make higher than a 4% increase for secretaries, custodians.
Right, because I'm looking at the budget while you're speaking, and I'm thinking back to where we started at 542 million is the projected revenue. So that's what we think is going to be brought in through the different parts.
Yes.
Right. And so what you're saying is every prior month we add to our formula, we're more accurate in looking forward. Not that means anything. Right. Because, when inflation goes through the roof and other things that happen when you start spending money that doesn't exist,
and you
it comes back somewhere.
have to buy cleaning supplies that you've never thought of, and temperature checks and things like that. So.
And when our sanitation budget doesn't come close to what it actually hits because a bottle of bleach is $7 or something like that, we'll have to figure that out as it goes. But that's a separate economics conversation as well. But I mean, and this is, I'm assuming it's normal that we're projecting 542 mil, so we're going to try to spend all 542 mil.
Yes. Because
now as I was scrolling down, we get into the next section, the 4% increases, step increases, social emotional needs. Okay, so here's a question for the listeners that are trying to read along with the budget out there. What is an FTE? It says right here. I'm on page 7. It's the fiscal year 22 expenditure budget, projected net increase of 38.2 million. 2021 expenditure budget 503, 4% salary increase, step increase, social and emotional needs 49.5 FTEs. What is an FTE?
That's full time
employee. Okay,
yeah. And
I was thinking of something like that.
So like a 0.5 is a half-time person.
Right. And then SPED, SPED, and student support. What's SPED?
Okay, SPED is special education.
Oh, special ed. Mm-hmm. All right, an acronym like that makes total sense now that you say it out loud.
Once you know it is, it makes sense. But
insurance, operations, then this, but on this list, those are increases from last year. So operations are going up $2 million from whatever they were last year. Debt service is going up $1.9 million from last year, and all other 2.3. Unanticipated staffing needs. That's planning on, because again, I heard a little bit about this. Is that there's Jennifer was talking about it when she was on. We're in this weird spot. We don't know how many kids are going to come back full time, how many are going to stay in virtual, maybe this is a good, let's step off budget and go down this road for a little bit. Because this has been a big conversation recently. I don't care. My kids are going into school. They get sick. They get other people sick. I'm fine with it. But for those parents who have liked the virtual option for whatever reason they've enjoyed it, they feel the need to continue it. Help me understand what the plan is, because I've got there's a couple different things moving. Right. Yeah.
Well, and originally what we were going to try to do is continue next year was going to be a transition from what we did last year to, we were going kind of 2 years from now where we were going to go to what we're actually doing next year, where we basically have a magnet program with a virtual high school, virtual middle school, and virtual elementary school.
So this is forever.
We want to look into it forever. We have kind of realized for some kids, as we say, we really think most kids benefit from being in the classroom, but for some kids, there are benefits for being virtual. There are certain, we always have had homebound children through sickness, things like that. This gives them an option. It's a more formalized way. When you get to high school, it allows kids to take some classes that maybe their school did not offer. Maybe they only had 3 kids that wanted to take, AP biology, right? And so there's some, there's some good ways of keeping it permanently. We were going to have next year be a transition where some kids were still going to be based at their home school, and then we would have actually the virtual academy. The state came down and they don't seem to want to give us a lot of notice on this sort of stuff. So we'd already put out our plan about how we were going to do it. We'd put in a timeline for parents to register for it or not. And then we got notification from the state that they were not going to allow it. Kind of our understanding of it is it was to keep Memphis and Nashville from having lots of virtual kids. And so what they came out with was you could only a school could only have maximum 1,500 students virtual. And they're not based at their school. So what we're having to do is to reapply to have one high school, one middle school, and one elementary school. We're still waiting on state approval for us to even do that. We are thinking we will get that state approval, and then people will have to apply, and it will be a magnet, transfer. And if we have 6,000 high school kids that want to be in virtual, only 4,500 of them will get in it. And I'm hoping the numbers work out that we don't disappoint people. But it's not what we were wanting to do for next year, but that is what we're doing.
Right, because this is what frustrates me about it, is as I am the most educated person in Knoxville on how BEP works, if we're paying for it, why do they get to tell us what to do?
The education comes under... It comes under state guidelines. I went to the diversity.
What's the math? Where 47% of our school budget is local.
Yeah.
Is locally paid. We pay, for simplification, we pay half of the school budget here.
Right.
Then we should be able to have 13 virtual schools, however it plans out that our kids want to do, if we want to do that. It's our money. It's our money in the first place, but whatever. We'll not pick and poke there, but they're holding our own money against us, and that upsets me a lot. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, I understand. No, I don't actually. Right. I don't understand it at all. Why it makes any sense whatsoever. I understand the premise of wanting to have some uniformity across the board. Like, I get that. I understand the premise that a kid that graduates with a 3.7 in Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Anderson County, McMinn County, whatever high school they graduate from, that there is a fairly that means something.
Right.
I don't have to go research what Knoxville does versus what McMinn County does to know that a 3.7 grad has this general base knowledge. I get that, but the ability to adjust to the things that the locality needs, having to come from a state level because they want to control Memphis. And I get it too, because this is what the voucher thing ran into, because you can't do subset stuff out of Nashville. Nashville can't do something just for Memphis because they want Memphis to act a certain way, which again, I don't think they should have the authority to do that either, but it just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't mean to rant on this, but it's just, at what, like, this is what this of the many times I say on the show, of all the different things that gets me further into enjoying this podcast is why do we allow it? Like, I don't understand why. Like, how do we just continuously allow this? And I know the answer is because nobody understands it.
Well,
the people
do, and this might talking about different people to talk to. It might be more like our legal department. Gary Dupler, he literally, every meeting I feel like I'm calling Gary to ask about legalities about something. So much of it goes to things like, I would say, state charters and state constitutions, or however they're done.
Right. Because I talked to Miss Hill in County Commission. She is the head of the committee on committees for the county.
Oh, gosh.
And she was talking about it. She's like, we go through every year and we do an audit of all the committees and councils and all that kind of stuff that run under the county. And there's like 7 that we want to get rid of, and they're all either in state charter or in county charter or a state mandate. And so we can't get rid of them. So it's just
even though they don't do anything.
Right. We just keep throwing the money at it because the state tells us we have to, but the state doesn't pay for it.
Right.
So I don't know. It makes me angry. I don't like. I am of the I am as hardcore libertarian as I like to shout as I am on this show. I will acknowledge taxes exist, but if they have to exist, it needs to be done well,
more
or better. Right. Maybe well is a too lofty a goal. Just better, and some logic behind it. Because I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. I can't rationalize the value in it. What's the value in it to, like, who gains value out of the control coming from Nashville?
Yeah. Well,
the students don't.
I get on that about the curriculum type stuff. We have a lot of legislators that don't work in schools. They get somebody in their ear telling them we shouldn't be teaching this, or we should be teaching this. I got one for you, actually. Oh, good. I can't wait to hear it. I was actually at the diversity and equity task force last night, and I was in the roundtable thing about education, and a lot of that came up about some curriculum things. And you really are thinking like a bunch of people in Nashville are sitting in a room talking about what we're teaching in our classroom, and how many of them know about the subject matter, come from a teaching background, but they've had one person that they think knows everything, and they've
Right.
listened to that
And
person.
when it goes way back to the first time we talked, it's what's the goal here? What's
Yeah.
the point? What are we trying to do? And I can get behind the idea that somebody that doesn't know the subject can see the value in that subject being mandated, or have some value in it being something that we want our kids to know coming out of school, even though they don't know anything about it. But yeah, it's like it's so weird to be having the how separated it is from the reality. It's like, well, I don't know what there's like 12 state education committee in the legislature or whatever of the
Well, you have the House and the
106,
Senate,
right?
and then you've got the education finance, then you've got the education curriculum people, and
Yeah, there's too many people doing too many things, and nobody knows what anybody's doing, and everybody has to react to what one person does, and nobody knows how it got there. That's what bothers. That's the big government problem. Anyway, we'll save my idea for a little later, because
Okay.
I know the general topic will come up, and then my what I think should be added curriculum will follow in there. So I don't know.
okay, so we're talking about virtual schools, though.
Yes.
So what we will be doing, whether we like it or not, we will be doing a high school, middle school, and elementary school, each with maximum capacity of 1,500. We have also said no kindergartners can do virtual school next year. It's not an option for kindergartners.
Okay, interruption again. I'm sorry. I'm feeling really interrupted today.
Okay.
I think it was Jennifer was in here talking about how many there's a good number of kids or parents that decided to hold their kid back a year instead of going into kindergarten. Not as
Okay.
many here, a lot more in Memphis again, because we all react to what Memphis
I
does.
would have done it. I would have done it last year if I'd had a kindergartner. I mean,
And so, so kindergarten can't be virtual, but is it an option for a parent to just skip it? Can the parents that didn't do kindergarten this year that were aged correctly, can they start in first grade?
That's a good. You bring up all sorts of questions that I've never thought about and I don't know the answer to. I don't.
Well, because I get it
mean,
on.
if you're the age and you have probably could take some tests to test into first grade, like you've learned your alphabet. I don't know the standards really for kindergarten to first. There probably are kids that can
Because
go
one of the
through it.
things, right? Because one of the things that is the concern that Jennifer was coming in. It's like, well, we don't know if we're going to have a giant kindergarten class this year.
Yeah.
And I guess it makes it a little easier because it's going to help some parents make their decision on, since it has to be in school.
Yeah.
Which I don't think any kindergartner got any value of virtual education anyway. But I'm not an educator. I don't know if there's any value in it or not. But so the idea of we're all of a sudden going to have this one giant class that's going to go through the whole system, and every year each class is going to be that class. As that class
Right.
moves up, we're going to have to adjust teachers and all this different stuff
Right.
to it. So anyway, that's why that one's curious to me, because it could normalize quickly if they're allowed to skip kindergarten and start in first grade, because it'll just be what the census and stuff has told us these
Right.
classes are going to be for years anyway.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, curiosity, no answer.
Yeah.
Back to where you were, because I interrupted.
Right. Well, we were talking about virtual schools, so and my husband actually asked me this question this morning. There must have been something in the paper or somewhere, because he read and he goes, "Is this true that if you go to the virtual school, you can't take part in like student government at your base school?" And that is a difference next year. Like
Right.
you were assigned to basically your base school this year. You could still take part in activities, sports, that kind of stuff. Next year, you're basically becoming a part of the virtual school. That is your school. You are no longer involved with your other school. But one thing I pointed out to him, the virtual school will bring up things that have not happened in the virtual school. Like I would imagine the virtual high school will have a student government. They will have clubs. These clubs might just work, meet. I mean, as you and I have all done this year, we've had a lot of
Right.
meetings online and stuff. So I think that
Which would probably be a good value add for that student, because at some level, this is a lot of what was abnormal about this last year is going to be parts and pieces will be normal forever moving forward.
Right.
Virtual meetings being one of them.
Yeah, nobody will think twice about having to get on a virtual meeting. And so I do think that the virtual schools will become, my thought is, I don't know this for sure, will become more robust as far as things that they offer to parents, that they offer to children. I mean, I would assume they probably have a PTA that's done by virtual parents and that kind of stuff. So I think it will become more like a true school. It's just it'll be a big shift next year.
Okay. I'm trying to, I don't know. Like it's like, if you're not comfortable with your kid going physically into a school, how are you going to be comfortable with your kid playing football?
There
Like
were
that
a lot.
doesn't.
There were I've had people ask me that question.
Unless the argument is that my kid really did well in the education curriculum part of virtual school, and I want to keep him or her in that because they seem to function better in that, and I want them to have all the other stuff. It's like, well, that's there's 1,000 little idioms for that of, cake and eat or something like that.
Well, I had a parent at the beginning of last year, and, when everybody had to decide, and this parent chose virtual for their child was going to play on football, but they got very upset because they were going to be a new 9th grader, and they weren't going to the 9th grade orientation at the school. And it was kind of one of those, you want both things. You don't want your kid to take part in classes, but you want them to do everything else. So what is your fear? If they're going to,
you really just want an assistant to homeschool your kid.
Yeah. Well, I think this was just a crazy year, and I can't judge anybody. I really don't. I mean, there are a lot of people that I think very differently from, but I do have to always look at, I don't know where they're coming from. I had a friend the other day that called me, and we were talking about education. I could just tell she's way more scared than I am, but I hadn't talked to her in a while. Found out both her parents died within 2 weeks last summer of COVID. She's coming from a very different place than I'm coming from with COVID. And I'm like, once I knew that, I'm like, I can't talk in the same way you do about it. You have had a very different experience. And I think that's what we always have to understand with people. I might not agree with you, but I also don't know where you're coming from with it.
Right. I mean, that's that is a generality that we as a society kind of suck at.
Yeah. Schools
are not. I mean, any of the often topics we talk about on here could fall under that category for sure.
Right.
And so I don't know. That's an odd spot to be in as a virtual student. And again, I don't know. Like my older one seemed to like his virtual days better than his real days, but he's just been one of those. He's not well on the attention span in the classroom. He doesn't know that he says he doesn't like school. He just doesn't get it. Right. I mean, which I think I was the same way. And so like virtual days, because when it comes down to it, like especially sitting in on some of the virtual days with him, we're talking in a 7-hour school day, their virtual days, if they were done back to back to back, was like an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. And then he gets the rest of the day to do whatever. Sure. Right. I'm down with that. I mean, that would be, I could see how some students would really excel in that format. Right. And especially like, cause I was one of the kids that I never put a lot of effort into school and I always just kind of coasted through. Like I'm not a genius, obviously. But I never tried and I just did okay. And if I could have done, if I could have spent less time in school bored and just done my not trying on the what I had to do and move on, I could see the value in that for sure.
Well, I talked to one of our principals and he was talking about, was not really excited about the many number of kids that were going virtual at their school, but said in retrospect, they have seen that there's some kids that were very introverted, did not feel comfortable talking out in school and that sort of thing. Once they've gone virtual, they've more found their voice. Right. They have spoken up. And so they said it's been interesting to see the kids that have thrived through it, and then others it has definitely not been the right thing.
Because again, like the get off my lawn old man of me is like life is dealing with people. Yeah. That's part of what school is that's part of what I feel like is important in school is that you got to learn how to interact. You got to learn how to be in the room. You got to learn how to hit the deadlines. You got to learn how to put up with a teacher that's mean to you and may or may not actually be picking on you, or it might be your personal, like you just might be perceiving it wrong or whatever. That's part of life. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't know. 15 years from now, virtual life might be more than functional for most people.
They might be sitting in their basement doing a podcast, right? And reaching out to the world,
right? But I get
seeing anybody.
It's true, man. Why you got to make it personal? I'm trying to be my old manishness here, but yeah, it's I mean, you're spot on, and that's the dichotomy for me as a parent. Right. Like, there's part of me as a parent that wants to, pound home the way I did it and the way it was for me and the value I got out of the things that I hated most about school. Right. And it's like I had to deal with it. Like, I've got bosses I've had since that I don't like, but it's like it's a consequence of the thing. Right. The thing I'm after is the paycheck and doing the job and moving on with my career, blah, blah, whatever. And the consequence of that is I have crappy bosses sometimes. Or the consequence of that is some of my coworkers don't pull their weight when I do a group thing at school. And so when you have a group project at school, you might pull more weight than the other kids. And you've got to just figure out how to function in that system. And apparently you can do that virtually. So we'll have to figure that out as as the generation moves forward. So, so that's the virtual school part. So I'm still confused. I don't understand any of who has any authority over anything locally as far as health concerns go.
I don't.
I was very much under the impression that,
I didn't understand what happened yesterday. I was at a meeting and found out.
like, I understand that like Governor Lee can do what Governor Lee did, and that's
Yeah.
fine. And we are not on the list of 89 counties that he has complete control over as the governor.
Which
We're
would
on
almost
that-
just make it easier if we were.
Right, we're on that short list of 5 or 6 that have our own health departments, which have a head of said health department who is the Dr. Buchanan that we all know and love or hate depending on where you are in the locally thing here. And I was under the impression that with the Board of Health thing and all that mess and all the people I've talked to in here about how the commission dissolved said Board of Health, that the authority to make decisions like this would just roll directly to Buchanan.
That's what I thought too.
And so, like, I was very confused when I watched Governor Lee announce that he's removing the mask mandate for his 89 counties and encouraging the other 6 to do the same. And then Mayor Jacobs immediately said, we're down. We're not doing masks anymore either. And I don't know. I went to bed last night and I had to work today, so I haven't gotten to dig through anything, but I hadn't seen any specifics on anybody saying, hold on, that's not the way it's supposed to work. I'm really confused because I spent a whole year paying attention to this one thing, and we got there and we didn't do what because that was what frustrated me about the whole thing. And I guess the big concern, Matt Shears, I'll give you credit, I guess, on this one, was that that as soon as they dissolve the board and it goes down to one person, Mayor Jacobs would lean on Buchanan to do what Mayor Jacobs wanted to do anyway, which is exactly what sort of happened. But nobody's questioning the authority part of the conversation, which is the weird one to me. And so then the immediate one, like many other parents, what are schools going to do? Because I was going to, we'd already scheduled it before all this happened, and I was going to talk to you about what I thought was I understand both sides of it because they're asking for who's doing virtual and stuff sooner. Yeah. And it's like, well, what are the parents that are concerned and think there should be masks, or the parents that think there shouldn't be masks want to know, well, what are we going to be doing come August in the mask conversation? And my gut reaction was like, we don't know what we're doing next week. Yeah. So the school can't tell you anything like that right now. Yeah. And so that whole thing happened. And then we shift the virtual school because of what the state did as well. And now here we are. Because what was weird about it is last week, at least my kid's school went mask-free recess.
Right. I knew it had... We had talked about that it going outside, we were going to allow the mask to come off, which I've heard was very enjoyed by kids going on the playground and being able to do that.
My kids didn't say anything about it.
Okay.
I mean, they said, I was like, I hear you get to get mask off for recess. They're like, yep. Okay.
They're big talkers, aren't they?
Yeah, apparently.
Well, honestly, I went to this DEO meeting last night at Fulton, and I walk in, somebody's like, is your email blowing up? And I'm like, I had a busy work day yesterday, and I went straight from work to Fulton, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because my email had just started calming down. And I said, what, why? And they're like, well, you didn't see the governor and mayor? I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, I sat down, opened my email, and sure enough, the emails have started. We now have a call. I don't know if you know this. We have a called meeting at 10 a.m. on Friday to discuss the mask.
So how does the job handle that, like your actual day job?
I'm a realtor, so it's flexible.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious about stuff like that because, a lot of you guys, the county commission, city council, a lot of people still have their day jobs and stuff. And how do you deal with weirdisms? Are you guys were you guys not meeting tonight?
Well, we are meeting tonight.
But that's all budget stuff.
That's all budget, and that's a special called meeting. And once again, I don't follow all these rules, but to have a special called meeting, you have to give 48 hours notice. So I was kind of hoping when I first heard about it, they would just tack this onto the end of the budget meeting tonight. Let's just get it over with. Guess we cannot do that. I sort of panicked because I have to move a kid out of college Friday night, and I actually sent an email. Is there any way to do it Friday morning? Because I don't want to miss it. I mean, I feel like it is my job to be there and vote on these things, whichever way I should vote. So luckily we are doing it 10 a.m. And this is a little bit of my frustration. I feel like we've got so many bigger issues in our community and our schools, and all we talk about is masks. And I'm so over talking about masks. I don't know. I mean, don't even know where to go with it.
My kids don't like them. Like it's annoying. Like it's stupid. But it's never been a point of anything that I've had any major issue, other than my youngest, who's a little bit of a nose picker, and he has the sharpest fingernails on the planet.
Okay, way too much information.
He has the sharpest fingernails on the planet, and so he cut his nose. He doesn't do that much, but he cut his nose the other day with his fingernail, and then he ended up bleeding all over his mask, and that was a whole big show at school because it's now stuck to his face, and then he had to go get a replacement mask and stuff. And so other than that, it's annoying. They don't like them, but it's never been of all the things that I have to fight with him over school for.
I think
mask
we
has not
have
been on the list.
I'm sure I'm going to hear from all these people if they listen to this. There is a very vocal community that these masks are killing their children, killing them. I mean, I wouldn't believe the emails I get. There's a world conspiracy causing this.
Then take your kids out of school.
They're such extreme. And then there are people too that I get the emails that think masks should never go away until there are no COVID cases. I mean, I did get one of my emails and it said, how can we even think about masks going away when there was one case at my kid's school last week? And I didn't respond this way, but I wanted to respond. I'm like, COVID is not going to be eradicated. Are we going to get the majority of people vaccinated?
Right. And are we going to wear masks forever?
And I will not vote for, if we had to have the vote, I was one of the 5 that voted to follow the health department guidelines going into next year. If it had been, we were going to require having masks all of next year, I could not have voted
Right, regardless
for that.
of what happens between then and now.
I could not, because I didn't know. I mean, I'm like, I am not ready in a year ahead to say a year from now, everybody's going to be wearing a mask. And the problem I'm having right now with our decision we're having to make Friday is we have 3 more weeks of school.
Right.
Like really,
right. We had this discussion. Right. We maybe for legality's sake, I'll leave out the specific. I have a community group that my kids are involved in.
Yeah.
And we have an event this weekend, and there was amongst the leaders there's a discussion last night.
Mask or no mask?
Are we wearing mask or no mask? And my response was, don't say anything. If parents and families want to wear their mask, they want to wear their mask, they can wear their mask. If they don't want to wear their mask, they don't wear their mask. And we leave it at that. I mean, it's only like 6 families anyway, so it's not a huge group. But, what I think you were getting at, I agree. Let's just finish the year. Don't do anything crazy. Let's just finish the year.
And that's where I'm really...
And have a conversation over the summer.
And I would say it to Mayor Jacobs if I said it, if he was here right now. I mean, and I respect him. I do. And he's trying to do the best he can do. But I'm like, and I think it to Lee and to Mayor Jacobs, like you couldn't have just waited till the end of May to make this change. Because what happens then is everybody's like, okay, schools, what are you doing? And I've reached out to my principals today because I want to know what they're thinking, and I'm getting some mixed feedback from my principals, and I really don't know where I'm going to be on Friday, and I don't know till I actually have to make the decision about it, because I'm not we need to have masks forever person, and I think some of the people think that because I voted to follow the health department that I can't wait to not wear them. I just went down to Alabama to visit my parents. No one in the state of Alabama COVID doesn't exist in the state of Alabama. I realized it was kind of nice. I mean, and
so you need teeth for COVID. Is that the joke we're making here?
I guess my family's all from there. So, and I grew up there. So we're going to be nice to Alabama, but,
not me.
Yeah. But, it's a very different environment, and it was kind of strange, and it's going to be interesting. I have a daughter that goes to University of Alabama, and she is going to an internship up in Michigan in 2 weeks. I think she's going to be in culture shock going to Ann Arbor, Michigan for the summer. Yeah. And I'm trying to prepare her
she's just trying to piss you off. Is that what it is? Everything that Tennessee hates, I'm going here. I'm going to go spend some time there.
She's just going to be there for the summer, and they're paying her, so I'm happy that she's going there. But, all of these communities are just dealing with it. Alabama's so one way. Michigan's so the opposite way. We're kind of straddling right now. I think we're about to open up, or I think maybe even today we've opened up. But
for example, I had to go work today, and as everybody listens to shows, I spent all day in multiple grocery stores. I wander around in grocery stores all day, and multiple stores. So it's like I go to one store, I work for a little bit, I go to another store, work for a little bit.
So do people have the mask on today, or
well,
not?
I mean, I as the libertarian in me, and the free to do as you please in me, walk up to a Target and the sign on the door says mask required. I put my mask on.
Right. I'm a rule follower.
As of right now, everywhere that I went into today, they still had their mask required masks up. And so as a private industry business can do as they please kind of thing. I'm not going to go in there and be like, oh, the mayor said I don't have to.
Right.
Well, that's fine. The mayor could say you don't have to. We say you do.
Right.
And I'm okay with that premise. And so,
actually, the mayor even said that. He was like, I'm saying this, but private businesses can do that. And so now it's being put on the schools that we will make a vote on Friday with 3 weeks left in school. And I just feel like we've got so many big issues going on, and we continue
and we're talking about masks again right now.
Yeah, budget. Who cares about the budget? Right. Let's talk about masks.
I can't understand. I do want to talk about the budget. I just it's too much, and I'm gonna get.
I'll tell you the good things about the budget.
Okay, back on budget. Check. Which page are you on? Tell me which one.
Well,
page number 6. No, I'm skipping.
Mine is not. You know what? Yours is numbered. Mine isn't numbered. But the page you were just talking about that kind of has this breakdown right here.
Yeah. Page. If you got it off, like I got it off the county school, the school website.
Yeah, they just didn't number my pages. But one of the big ones is we all know we need more social emotional help with these kids, and especially after this year. And it's something we have been begging the state to change their BEP formula on. I mean, it is way too many the ratios are too high on counselors, social workers, all that kind of behavioral people, things like that. They haven't really moved the needle on that. Nurses, but through our budget, we're able to add almost 50 positions.
Right.
That's huge. I mean, it's not where we even want to be, but it's a step in the right direction. So that's one of the things. We continue to be underfunding paying our teachers. Whether people agree with that or not, we are not in line with where teachers are paid around the state and in the country.
Okay.
So we're going up 4%. We've got to make incremental.
So, I mean,
changes.
I guess I could look it up if I dig down through here, if I had a calculator out, because our total, once I get to page 10, 11, 12, when it starts breaking it down a little wider, like our total, I don't know how to read this. Salaries and wages is 65.8% of our total budget.
Yeah.
How many teachers do we have? Will this new budget have?
How many will it help?
I know how many, like the 2022 fiscal year 2022 on salaries and wages are like 354.2. Am I reading that right? 354 million ish.
Okay.
How many teachers is 354 million paying?
350 more.
I mean, obviously there'd be administrators and.
We have about 5,000 teachers.
Okay, so math, Knox County math, everybody. Here we go.
I'm not dividing by that one. I wanted to figure out another number.
Oh, fine. I'll get my own calculator out.
What I was looking at, our budget of $542 million, we have about 60,000 kids in our school. We're spending about $9,000 per kid, which is not really a lot. It sounds like a lot, but that's...
I know, because I have my terrible example that I do all the time of give me 20 kids and $9,000 per kid, and I'll get them through third grade.
Okay.
I can figure it out. All right, so hold on. I've still haven't got my calculator. 9,000 times 20 kids. See, I need a calculator. $180,000 a year. Mm-hmm. No, that's not right. Is that right?
Okay, and then you're going to pay rent somewhere. You're going to pay insurance.
Why?
Huh?
What do I pay insurance for?
You don't have to.
But I mean, two
Johnny
teachers.
falls off the playground.
2 teachers at $60,000 leaves me $60,000 left over. I mean, well, by state rules, that's one teacher. Right. So there's one teacher at $60,000, which is probably higher than average teacher salary. Right. So right here.
And really, if you just had one school, they probably could manage it. It's when you get into 500 kids, you need an administrator, you need cafeteria staff, if all the kids brought their own lunch, or maybe even had Chick-fil-A cater it every day.
There you go. They'd do it. They believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the other math question, I should do it if I could get a couple more sponsors in here so I can quit my day job. I'll do a long, like full on breakout business model of my 20 students.
And I'll tell you, I am the worst with numbers. I mean, like, if you want to ask me tell me the actual number of X, I'm like, it's in the general 5,000.
If we have 5,000 teachers at 554 million, that's give or take 70,000 a year average, which, obviously a principal is going to be above that and a starting teacher is going to be below that. And that's if it's exactly 5,000 teachers. And I'm assuming that includes Bob Thomas' salary as well as.
Well, and this is where too, and this is once again a wrong question. I mean, there are a lot of, you get into the social workers, the counselors, and what's teachers versus those. I don't know where we break them down in Knox County schools as far as our pay categories.
Right. Yeah.
I'm the wrong person to have on here about the budget.
Right. And like I said, I've got Ron on speed dial. I'll get him on here and we'll talk about this. Because when is because what's the special meeting tonight for?
Voting on this budget.
Why are we voting on? Why is it a special meeting to vote on this budget?
Because we never know exactly when it's done.
Are we in a hurry to pass it?
Oh, yes, because it's not passed with us. We pass it to send it to Mayor Jacobs. Mayor Jacobs then puts this in with his whole big budget, and then he can either take this as we send it to him, And what people need to understand is this is not Knox County Schools working in a silo coming up with this budget. Hey, sweetie, coming up with this budget. Our finance person, Ron McPherson, is in constant contact with Chris Caldwell, the finance person for the county. So they are talking about what will work, what can the county pay for, and things like that. So by the time we send it to the mayor, we're not sending a budget of surprises to him. And so,
But it's a surprise. The problem here is that it's surprises to me. Rowdy, come here, dude.
whoops, I think he's on the wire. Okay, whoops.
He does it. Oh, dog. How did you even do it?
Okay, yeah, he's all tangled up. He's got the other leg tangled. Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
Rowdy the dog, everybody. Stepping in, doing what he does.
Okay, so what surprises you?
This is you said you got the budget Friday?
Well, I got the finalized copy of it. Like, they're tweaking it and things like that.
Right, because so when I started emailing you, because I knew it's budget season,
Right.
I said, when can I get you on when we have a draft budget? And I guess my interpretation of draft budget is like, this is the rough copy. This is what we're just kind of throwing out there as a starting point, and
Right.
we adjust from there. But the feeling I'm getting is this is not a rough copy.
Yeah, no, yeah.
This
you're
is
right.
the final copy going to the mayor's office. And so what I was hoping to get into discussion wise is, I mean, and obviously I understand that Ron's working on the budget year round. It's
Right.
not just, it's April, we got to put the
Right.
budget out. But at the same time, I could feel like it went from, there's stuff going, budget season's coming up, to here's a budget, go.
Right.
And, we're, like you said, we're calling a special meeting. We got to get it done so we can get it to the mayor's office, so
Right.
the mayor can put it in his budget so he can release his budget, and blah, 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 blah. This is the complaint. This is one of the chief complaints when I start talking baseball stadium to people. And this is from the beginning when it got real serious conversation back in November?
Yeah.
And it's going to be, if it does what it wants to do and stuff like that, it's going to be voted on hopefully in September, August. That's 9 months. And the big complaint is that's too fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do we get to here? At least on the public side of it,
Right.
I don't see how, I don't see how to describe this other than a surprise budget to me, because literally I got a copy that I could read Friday.
Right.
And in my limited time to have to focus on it, and limited understanding on top of that to try to break down what any of this means, it's now Wednesday and it's getting voted on tonight.
Right.
So as far as a public scrutiny standpoint, I'm a little perturbed.
You don't feel like it's very Now, did you know about the public meeting that we had that you and anybody in the public was welcome to go to? I went to it.
I was probably aware of it and didn't have time to go to it.
It was at Central High School. Well, you know what? You didn't even have to have time because it's broadcast and it's taped and people can watch
when
it.
when Mr. Elon Musk gets that brain chip thing, so I can just implant all the knowledge into my head in zero amount of time, it still takes time to sit and watch. Because one of the things, and this has nothing to do with this specifically, like all the public meetings
Yeah.
are right in the middle of dinner.
Right.
And so it's like I'm trying to get the kids fed, trying to get homework done. I won't say that anybody did it on purpose. Maybe they did because they want people not having time to pay attention.
But if we did it at 2
Right.
o'clock in the afternoon,
Everybody's at work. If you do it too late,
there's not a good time for
right? If
everybody.
you're too late, it's already half a bottle of Jack, and I'm not going to remember any of it
But
anyway.
everything's online now. I mean, so there really is. If you truly care, and I'm not dissing you on this,
You can
but
say it. Fine.
But you can get to it. But this is the other thing. I mean, we have a group of people that come to all of our meetings, and we do get a lot of this. Is it's not transparent enough. There's not enough public discussion of it. And Daniel Watson, I have really enjoyed him being on our school board. But we always have one of these public meetings every year. Since I've been on school board, I go and I'll start looking around the room, and there's most of the other school board members, a lot of Central Alpha staff, and usually one hand I can count the number of the public that has come to it. And Mr. Watson this year suggested, well, maybe we're just not making it accessible enough to people. We should have 4 or 5 of these. And I literally just groaned. Not that I don't want people to have access to it. If people showed up, I'd be thrilled. But I'm like, if we have 4 or 5 of these, it's going to be the same group that was at Central, would show up in Farragut, would show up in South Knoxville.
I don't know. I think
In the 4 years I've done it, we've had it at different locations,
Yeah.
and it's the same public
handful of
members
people.
of the
Okay.
people. I mean, and I'm not dissing them. It's just
diss them all for
but-
not showing up.
And it's not that they don't care, but we all, before I was on school board, I was busy with my kids' little league, and you're feeding your kids dinner, and people in the abstract care about the budget, but when you really get them to look at it, I mean, this has been out for the public to look at. I would love to know how many people other than you have really
That's it, me. I'm,
looked at
like
it in
Ron said, I'm the
depth.
only one that
and
understands
I,
anything.
I think it's great that you're doing it, but really and truly, there's not that public interest to know it in depth unless it's some huge major change.
Well, because and again, I'll push back a little bit. It's
Yeah.
I think that there's the interest is there, but the and not even the time necessarily, but the ability to understand it. Like,
Yeah.
I own businesses. I look at sheets like this. I understand what, like, the formatting and what this means
Right.
and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like, like our joking, playing with our calculators there is like, the 100, however, 60 something percent. What was the total? I forgot now again. The 354 million in salaries and wages. Well, how many teachers is that?
Right.
Like the ability to break it down into a palatable, like, kind of taking it out of the abstract of
Sure.
$354 million. Because I think for normal people, once you get past like 5 figures,
Yeah.
it all goes blank in understanding what it is anyway.
Right.
Like, other than a house, there's nothing that's more than $25,000. Like, $25,000 is the cutoff, and everybody else is past that. It's just
And
like,
when you start
that's
talking
rich people stuff.
$542 million. I mean, it blows my mind that that's what our budget is. But to get back to the process of we need to vote on this because we have to send it to Mayor Jacobs' office. He will decide if this budget fits into his bigger budget because we're the major portion of his budget, but we are still just a part of the county's budget. And then he will make recommendations to county commission on whether he wants to include our entire budget as it is as part of his bigger
Right,
budget.
adjustments and what there. And then city council or commission gets their opportunity to do a little bit of
City council
finagling.
does not
Right,
vote
not
on
city.
it. Yeah, they're just
Right.
a set percentage of their I think
city
sales
council
tax comes to us. So then they vote on it, but it really is up to our county commission to have the final say in this.
So how do we get Farragut to pay their fair share?
I don't know.
It's a separate issue that blows my mind. Like, I mean, whatever. I get it because it's like Ron said the first time I had him. It's there's a perfectly inverse equation for how much, for the quality of outcomes versus the average income of the community that feeds the school. It's completely it is completely the opposite, or it's the average income of the community that feeds the school is the amount per student is less. In the higher, they're opposite deals, and so I mean, I got to kind of respect Farragut's stance on it. It's like we have better schools and we pay less.
Well, I mean,
we spend less, I guess, in theory too.
There will be a lot of people that disagree with me on this, and I've always think our property tax is too low. I'm a realtor. I have people that come from out of town, and it blows their mind what we pay in property tax.
Well, but okay, so that one to me, and I push back on a lot of people on this one, and it's the whole school budget conversation and teachers stuff like that. It's like, what's the right number? Like, how much is enough? That's my problem with like there's two parts to this that they're standard phrases I hear, and it's we don't do enough we don't spend enough money on schools. Right. And so my question follow up is like, how much do we need to spend?
Right.
And nobody can ever answer my question. And then the second one is we haven't raised property tax in 20 years. Right. Implying that we need to raise property tax.
Right. But you need to show why we're needing to raise it.
Right. And it's like, because again, like I've said this a bunch of times as we're leading into budget season, looking through this budget, not understanding any of it. I am open to the idea that they're good budgets. Right. I will allow myself to say, okay, fine. That's the thing that we need to spend money on. That's the thing that we need to spend money on, stuff like that. I'm open to the idea. I'm just under a strong assumption that what I pay in taxes, both property and sales tax and income tax and all the other stuff, I don't see the value for the money I gets taken out of my wallet. And it's on all levels, not just A, B, or C. It's I mean, the federal government's the worst of it in my opinion, but on all levels, I don't see the value in what I'm getting for what I'm paying for it. Right. And it doesn't have to be a perfect value. Like, I understand the premise, especially, my PTO can buy a new gym floor where Belmore's can't. And so the state makes up or the county makes up what the direct community can't. Mm-hmm. Like, I get that. I'm okay with that premise, but I still want to see the value for my expenditure.
Well, I one of the things, and have you ever had Larson J on here?
Yeah, it was deep. Anyway, go ahead.
He and I kind of get into some conversations about this, and I mean, he really is like, y'all keep saying you want money, but show me what you want the money for. And I agree with that. I mean, we always talk about we need more money, and what I would love for the county to do, and I've asked to do it, and I don't ever get it, but I would love for us to come up with a budget of how many counselors do we think we need for kids? How many social workers do we think we need for kids? I mean, I was at this meeting last night at Fulton, and we were talking about you've got one guidance counselor for 400 kids trying to make life decisions about if they're going to go career or college, whatever. You cannot serve one counselor cannot service 400 kids well. I mean, I don't care how great that counselor is, they can't do it. So just things like that. So what do we think the magic number is at a high school level, counselor-wise? What is the ideal number in a dream world to really service these kids? Put that number down, put the price tag for them,
right,
and then show what we would get. And then I think you have to give it a couple of years, and then you need to start seeing some outcomes from spending that kind of money.
Right.
I think there's also some things on some of our career technical programs to really give robust career technical programs. It would take more money to do some of the infrastructure, to pay some of the instructors, to get some of the people from industry to come into the schools to teach that we want qualified to teach. But I think we have to be able to show the community, someone like you that is a taxpayer, okay, what would you get? Don't just say we need more money.
Because again, it goes back our first conversation.
And I agree with you. Yeah, I mean,
our first conversation was, what are we trying? What is the end goal here? What is the metrics for saying we won with this student? And we don't know.
Yeah.
And if we don't know that, how do we do what you're talking about by saying, well, we want this, that, and again, I think that's one of those super broad, super big conversations that we don't have time to have. We don't have the energy to have. We don't have enough people that are willing to put time into it and effort and expertise on certain subtopics of it. And then it's a matter of getting more than 6 people to agree on the same thing too.
Well, and I think it's gotten to be too, schools have changed. Schools used to be, you sent your kid for 12 years. They were supposed to learn reading and writing. Schools are supposed to be the parents. They're supposed to be the food service. They're supposed to be the health service. They're supposed to be the social emotional. And so we've put so many services on schools right now.
I mean, I agree with you, except the like the genesis of said activity is what I guess I have in question is who decided that the schools need to be this.
And that would be very interesting. And
because I mean, I agree. It's like there's you see the stats all the time about the kids that when school's not in, the kid doesn't eat.
Yeah.
Kind of those kind of situational.
Is that the school's job though to feed?
Right.
And I'm not saying
or
yes
is
or
it
no, yeah.
right? And is it one of those? Well, it's the community. It's the easiest way for the community to help in this situation, and maybe that's the way. But it's like, well, maybe it's the easiest way, but is it the right way? Is it going to be a long-term solution for this family, or is it just going to be patch, and now we have 15 years of patching on this kid, and we send out whatever we send out. And so, I mean, I agree. I do agree with that. Like, there's a great illustration that it was like a teacher, and they had like all these like tattoos of all the different job titles that a teacher has other than just being a teacher. And I was like, that's pretty profound. It's pretty well done, little bit. But it's like a number of things are that way where you just accept that is. Right. And to have any discussion to say, hold on a second, how did we get there? Yes. And what is it supposed to be? So if it's not supposed to be that, and we agree it's not supposed to be that, what is it actually supposed to be? Right. And then once we can agree on that, then we can start breaking down what it's going to cost to do what they're supposed to do.
Or if we are supposed to do all these things, how do you properly pay for it? But I see it a lot of times, and once again, this goes back to how does the state have the power, all the time when they pass these mandates and things like this. And it's like, when did the schools become the people that do that? But I do feel like a lot of times it's like, if we figure somebody needs to do it, it does get pushed to it's a school system problem.
I mean, and I can kind of see it as you get the biggest budget of any subset of the county anyway, so we might as well throw it on you.
Right.
You've got the most money anyhow, maybe. I don't know. All right, so we went a little long on other stuff, and we did very, very poor budget coverage, everybody. You're welcome.
Ron McPherson's got it.
Right, I'll get Ron in here.
And Chris Caldwell would be good too from the city.
Well, I'm gonna try to get him on standard budget, and I'm sure we'll talk about school budget.
Well, I mean, because school is the major part of theirs, so.
And so maybe, I can get them together because neither of them are elected, right? I'm trying to get Mr. Buck in. He's refusing to come in.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if he's refusing. He's just, I don't know. I'm not there more. I want somebody to break down sunshine law for me so I can make sure that I don't ruin somebody's career by having multiple
and don't even get
elected
me started on the sunshine law, which my understanding of the sunshine law is, honestly, you should be able to have two elected of us here from school board, as long as we're not discussing something we're going to, like the budget, we would have to talk about. We couldn't do it. I have just seen multiple times where it honestly, like even this mask thing, if we could just shut our door, and honestly, the 9 of us sit there and just sort of hash out the mask issues and stuff like that. But when we have to do it in a formal situation in front of the news media and everything else, it just makes it complicated sometimes.
Right.
And I know that there became sunshine laws because people do these backroom deals and things like that. And I'm all against preventing that. But there are some good things that are prevented from happening and some good, honest conversations
Right.
that are prevented because everything has to be done in a public
Right.
scenario.
And in the world we live in now, if you are in politics, you are always campaigning for the next time on some level, even if you don't want to do it again, because last time we talked, you weren't sure if you're going to do it again. And we got years before.
I think I've decided, though. I am running again.
All right.
This is probably
so
the
see,
stupidest time ever to
and
decide
whether
that.
you whether it's even conscious and intentional or not, there's something about when you're in public, you are going to be a little bit more careful with your wording, not because you mean something terrible with the bad wording you might do in private.
But you never know how somebody's going to take it.
You
and
don't
then
want to
use
get that
it.
bad quote
Yes.
next time you have to elect it. And I
And
agree
I
that
don't
that's
think
an
it's
issue.
elected. I think
Just
I've just
public
seen it
in
lately.
general.
Like somebody, Bob
It's a greater
Thomas said
cultural-
one
right.
time, and then it's been taken to
Right.
hit
It's the
him
greater
in the butt
cultural
again.
cancel
Yeah.
culture kind of thing that's going
Yeah.
on. That any chance I get to destroy somebody in the public sphere, it's a win. But so I wanted, I didn't really want to, but I figured it was going to come up naturally, is to go into some of the security issues moving forward.
Sure.
And I don't know, like I still haven't. I don't know. I still haven't formed an actual opinion on what happened on the 12th. Was it the 12th, right?
I believe so.
A couple Mondays
The
ago.
Monday, yeah.
And I've watched the video. I sat through the whole press conference, and I did that thing, and I'm trying really hard to be as open and clear and understanding all the different things that went into what got us there, to that specific event. And I don't know that metal detectors changed that. There's so many things, because if the idea was that he didn't have it in school, went and got it and came back, the idea is that he left the school and came back anyway and nobody noticed. Yeah. Who cares if there's a metal detector or a wand in that process? Yeah. He left the school and came back without anybody noticing. Yeah. So fine, we have metal detectors on the door. He goes out and comes back and nobody notices. Who's there to see the alarm go off when he comes through with his gun? Like, that's what I don't get about it. I don't like, to me, and maybe you can, this is something you guys will talk about. To me, it doesn't, it's, that is a theater answer to me. That is here we're doing something. Yeah. We're not really doing anything, but it looks like we're doing something. Right. That's what it feels like to me. And so that's my concern on that one. The curriculum thing that I think we should add on this topic is, I think this is not this. I know this sounds terrible and sounds crazy. It doesn't sound terrible. It sounds genius to me, but I don't see why we wouldn't do a gun safety course mandated in schools. I know why we won't do it, but I don't see why we won't do it.
I can't even imagine. I honestly don't know how to use a gun. I've never used a gun, but my husband is a hunter. My husband and my son, who has hunted, have both taken gun safety classes. Everything you read says typically people that are trained properly on guns don't. They're not your crazy shooters, and they don't.
Well, not even that. I mean, how many, like,
they respect a gun. They have respect.
Well,
for
even
it.
on the specific of this one is and this is an assumption. I don't know. Anthony could have been trained. He could have known how to use his weapon and used it on a regular basis and practice with it like a good gun owner does. Doubt it, but it's possible. But there's all sorts of little rules that you learn when you handle a weapon, and even if you are in a fist fight with your gun in your pocket, you don't accidentally pull the trigger ever. Right. And it's simple stuff. And so that whole shooting occurred because of poor gun etiquette, regardless of the fact that the kid had the gun in the school in the first place.
I don't.
And it's just basic, simple, just proper handling, what to do. Like I mean, I compare it to a sex ed class. I'm sorry, we call it health physiology or whatever we call it now. Sex ed.
I don't even really agree with what we teach.
So we have sex ed, we have DARE's back.
Driver's education.
I don't care about driver's ed, but DARE and sex ed are more equatable to me. Yeah. Okay. We're not teaching you because we want you to go do it and use it and whatever it is. We don't want you to go have sex. We don't want you to use the drugs. Yeah. We don't want you to use the gun. Right. But we want you to know how to handle yourself safely in the occasion that you happen to be with your girlfriend in private and you kind of want to do it, but you shouldn't, or you need to have the proper protection. All the stuff that you learn in sex ed class. The same thing with the DARE program is we don't want you to use pot, but we want you to know what happens with people that do use it, which pot's a bad example because I don't think pot's a problem, but like we don't want you to use coke or heroin or fentanyl or all the over-the-counter stuff that people like to abuse and stuff like that.
We need to educate
we
you
want you
about
to
what the
understand,
problems are.
what the consequences are from using it, what to do if one of your friends uses it and something weird happens, and how to handle the situation. We are comfortable and promote those ideas for drugs and sex, but the idea of even thinking about it with guns, while we're complaining about the problems that people have with guns, is impossible. I even telling you about it here in my home, I'm this is like, I almost feel guilty for saying it out loud because I know it's so ridiculous.
Laughable. I mean, it's
right.
so, like,
but it shouldn't be.
And I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. And honestly, I think my husband and I were kind of talking about it. I think that's great. I've even thought it probably.
How old is your kid? You have a college kid?
College age, but I mean,
Okay.
But my husband started taking him hunting when he was a kid, and so whatever age it is, you can go over on Rifle Range Road or whatever and take some gun safety class. They did it. And,
I mean, I do basic stuff here at the house with the kids.
Yeah.
It freaks my 8-year-old out, and I'll say this on air, and people are gonna freak out at me, but I will take my pistol, I will clear it, and he'll be playing on his computer doing whatever, not paying attention to me at all. I will completely clear it. There's not a chance in the world that this gun's gonna do anything. I will walk over and I will set it on his lap. And the first thing he does is he re-clears it, because that's what you do when you're handling a gun. And he's 8.
Yeah.
So if he's out with his friends and one of his friends gets a hold of daddy's gun or whatever, and they're playing around with it, he knows he gets out of there. Yeah. If it ends up in his hands, he clears it. And if his friends aren't clearing it, he's like, you better clear that thing. Yeah. Clear it. And that's what my kids know. And so my kids are not going to accidentally shoot themselves or one of their friends. They may accidentally get shot by one of their friends, but that would be even rare in that sense, because they know not to be near it. Or if they are near it, what to do about it. So bottom line is, I'm not worried about it. I have a gun in the house. I lock it up anyway. But if they are wanting to show off to their friends, they're going to show my gun off safely to their friends if they somehow figure out how to get into my safe and get it. And that to me just makes sense.
Right. Or just the fact that you should, if you have a gun at your house, it should be locked up. I mean, I think just teaching people the rules of, it is a dangerous thing, kind of like we talk about drugs. It is a dangerous thing, but people do have them. So this is how you do it. I don't disagree that it's not a good idea. I'm
right.
Like
it's
you,
laughable
we both
that
know
there's
that,
even
like, there's no way in hell we're teaching.
I'm going to run against you for school board, and just to make sure I don't win, I'm going to run on that platform that I'm going to do gun education in the schools.
Yeah, especially my district. There's some districts that you probably could actually win on that platform, but
right. I think out here we get a little traction out here.
I don't know. My district's actually.
You're my district.
Yeah, and I like my district. I mean, my district's just very. I have a lot of reasonable people, I feel like, honestly. I mean, and I hear from both sides on things, but I don't get people screaming at me, which I really appreciate. They come to me with their different points of view. I might not agree with them, and a lot of times I don't, but we can have a good discussion. I mean, I had somebody the other day that actually supported me in my last campaign, was very upset about my stance on something, and I went back with why I did that, and at the end of the day, he said, we disagree at the end of the day, but I appreciate what you're doing. And that's what I have appreciated about my district, is they might not always agree with me. I have learned with COVID, I cannot make everybody happy. There is no way I'm ever going to make everybody happy. And, but that's one thing I've really appreciated about my district, is people are very respectful for the most part.
Yeah, go District 4. That's me. I'm
District
one of those
4.
people.
Yeah, so if you want to run against me, just let me know.
No,
let's get into it. Come on.
I have too much fun doing this. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to lose this because of that and not get paid for it and all the other stuff. What does a school board get paid?
We do get paid. Once again, I'm not a good numbers person. It's about $23,000, I think. That might not be right. It might be 25.
So $250 a week.
We actually got a raise like 2 years ago, because we do not vote on this, and everybody needs to know this. School board does not set our salary. It is set by county commission. And all of a sudden somebody goes, "Hey, my pay went up," and we realized that county commission.
It's one of those that they did some like blanket raise.
We're tied to their salary, so if theirs goes up, ours goes up. But we have nothing to do with our salary. Yeah,
Kyle Ware and I had a discussion about their salaries and especially pandemic related, how much more time this year than traditionally a commissioner has to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's the idea of it being full time's got some value, but at the same time, I like it being part time. I don't want it to get paid more.
You do have to have a job with that's flexibility. And what I really see as a problem is at the state legislature side. I mean, who can really spend 3-4 months over in Nashville with most jobs that we have. I mean,
Right.
at least here, being a county commissioner.
Well, they get
city
paid
council-
though, so they're. I mean,
No, they don't get paid much at all.
Massey and them.
You'd have to look up their salaries. I think it's about what we make. They do get per diems to help with like housing and stuff like
Oh,
that.
I didn't know that. Well, good. No, they need to get less money. Money sucks.
There might be other ways to get money being a state legislator, but it is not in their salary. And
Oh, we're gonna have to do a whole other show on
yeah,
that.
you should see all the ways that us school board people we get really rich off
That's
of
right. How many Ticonderoga Road pencils do you have at your house? All right.
But anyway, so yes, it is paid. It is part time. I wish I'd gotten paid per email I got this year. If I had gotten paid per email, that would have actually. I could have gotten rich off of that one.
There's a bad mandate to put in place. I'll work on the commission. I'll be like, hey, let's do it to email any elected official in the county. You must pay a quarter an email.
Yeah.
Then this county gets a nickel, and then the individual gets a dime, and then the other 10 cents disappears like a bunch of money does. Anyway, all right, I got to get out of here. I got to pick up the kids from school.
Okay.
Virginia Babb, everybody. She's not running, so she doesn't have to pitch herself. Meeting tonight, and apparently meeting Friday morning.
Running.
But it's a couple years away, isn't it?